We are joined here in the studio at QBS Radio 97.5 by a very special guest, Ambassador Timmy Davis from the United States of America to the state of Qatar. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I am so glad that you're here. I know a lot about you from your bio or from your official information. You were a career member of the Senior Foreign Service with the rank of counselor. Before you arrived here in Qatar to be the ambassador, it says here you were recently serving as the executive assistant to the Secretary of State. And prior to that, you served as the U.S. Consul General for Basra and Southern Iraq. Your overseas tours included Guatemala City, also in Iraq, in Australia, and Colombia. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I am very, very honored to have you here.
Thanks. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it.
My first question is, how does a Marine and you did 2 tours?
I was in the Marine Corps for 10 years, a couple of deployments after 9/11, so it was a busy time.
It was a very busy time. So how did you make it as from a Marine to being in the Foreign Service? That is just an enthralling story. I got to hear about this.
It's not such an easy transition, but we were coming back from Afghanistan on the boat. Colin Powell was in San Diego where we were home ported, and he was talking to Marines about becoming Foreign Service officers. And the way we choose our Foreign Service officers is a test. Mm-hmm. It's merit-based. You pass the test, you pass an oral assessment, and you get to be a diplomat. The pace of deployments in the Marine Corps, I started to wonder, how are these decisions being made about where we go and what we do? Who are these people who are doing the other half of the mission, the diplomatic half of the mission? And so I thought, you know what, I should give this a try.
And you succeeded. And
it's gone well.
And you more than succeeded. You have excelled in this regard.
Thank you.
I am just completely fascinated by that whole journey because foreign service isn't for everybody.
No. And Marines in particular, we're a very sort of disciplined, dedicated cadre of women and men. Our lives are very simple. Some would say Spartan. And so that transition to being a diplomat, to being going from being directed and being directive to being collaborative, to being a little more thoughtful in some situations. Some people have a hard time with it. But the thing I brought with me from the Marine Corps, the one thing that has made me successful is I'm super hard to bother, right? If you need me to take out the trash, I'll take out the trash. If you need me to write the concept of the operation, I'll write the concept of the operation. If you need me to convince some local tribe leader to work with us, I'll do that too, right? No job too big or too small. And that, which I brought from the Marine Corps, made all the difference in my career.
I can see how that skill set can translate for a specific type of individual. And I'm so happy that you made the transition because you seem right now overjoyed with the way life is going.
I mean, it's hard to complain, right? I'm a U.S. ambassador in a great country with only growing responsibilities and concerns. I've got a great team at the embassy, and I've been so lucky. I was Hillary Clinton's special assistant and Mike Pompeo's executive assistant and Tony Blinken's executive assistant, and I worked at the White House. I've just had these really remarkable experiences, some of them through luck, some of them through hard work, but I sometimes say no one's having a better time or career than I am, and so it would be hard to be down on that.
So let me ask you this. You've been here a little over a year in your posting. Do you have any special memories that stand out from that year?
Well, let's be clear. The U.S. Treasury should not have paid me for the World Cup. They should have docked my pay. It was absolutely spectacular to be part of what I believe, and I played college soccer and played professionally for a year afterward. But to be part of what I believe to be the best World Cup in my lifetime was simply spectacular. The World Cup that Qatar put on in one city with no crime, no violence. You can't choose how the matches are going to go, but those were some of the best matches anyone has ever seen, including a final that people will remember for centuries.
Blown away.
Yeah, it just amazing. And so that experience obviously was an important one, but the more esoteric, the more prosaic memory is how I've been welcomed here. I feel like I'm part of a family, even when things are hard, and it's rarely been difficult here with Qatar. The conversations that I have are about how can we do better, right? How can we move the relationship forward? And so apart from the World Cup, being welcomed like family has been amazing. I'll tell you this short story as well. I didn't really understand how a Majlis works when I got here,
right.
And it turns out Majlises are open. You should just go to people's homes, and I had to be taught how to do that. And so finally I tried it. I was like, okay, I'm just going to show up at a Majlis and this will be fine. I showed up. The people were so upset that I had just shown up, right? Because they want to show their best side to the U.S. ambassador, and so
the title was daunting, is that
right? And so I had to learn the lesson of give people a little bit of notice when you're going to show up, so that they can be their best selves and they can show you their best side. And so those experiences have meant so much to me over the last year.
I've been here for a little over a year as well, and I completely concur. I completely agree with you.
Let's move on to the biggest story of the week, which has got to be the prisoner swap between Iran and the U.S., which took place right here in Qatar. What can you tell us about how that went down and what the details?
I can tell you that it was a couple of years of work by really dedicated professionals around the world. Our Swiss partners, our hostage affairs folks back in the United States, our Iranian affairs folks back in the United States as well. But Qatar played such an important role in this, as they often do. They helped find solutions throughout the last couple of years to ensure that we could actually make this exchange. Mm-hmm. And in truth, it's not just the high policy stuff that they helped with, though they helped with that. Standing on that tarmac yesterday with Ambassador Fakhro, with Akbar al-Bakr from Qatar Airways, you realize that it's not just the big diplomatic things. It's also Akbar al-Bakr helping with flights. It's Ambassador Fakhro helping with ensuring that the people who needed to come here to receive the American detainees were able to get here seamlessly. Mm-hmm. And so Qatar, this could not have happened without Qatar. We would still be trying to figure out a way, and Qatar, both publicly and behind the scenes, were absolutely essential to the success of this.
That is absolutely remarkable that this happened to begin with, and the fact that we're here on the ground as Americans witnessing history. You talk about what people will remember over the years, and this is definitely going to be one of those incredible memories that we have.
I have had the opportunity to do amazing things at the State Department. I've worked for incredible people at the State Department, famous historic figures at the State Department. Nothing will top how I felt last night hugging those detainees as they got off the plane.
That's right.
It's the reason we do what we do, right? Why be a diplomat? Why represent America if you can't have a moment where it all sort of comes together like yesterday?
We're speaking with Ambassador Timmy T. Davis, who is the U.S. ambassador to the state of Qatar. Let's move on to some questions about security and cooperation. Can you tell me a little bit more about bilateral cooperation between Qatar and the USA?
Absolutely. I'll start with security, but there are so many facets of this that are important. We talked about the World Cup. The United States and Qatar worked together to make sure that World Cup was secure. We have Al Udeid Air Base here with thousands of personnel. We are in a constant conversation about training, about doctrine, about how we can help each other provide security in the region. Qatar has been an incredible ally and voice for stability, whether it be energy deals in Iraq, their diplomacy in North Africa. they have been absolutely vital to our ability to do more and more. But our bilateral relationship goes beyond that. Obviously, there's energy with big U.S., American, international oil companies working here.
Right.
But on subnational diplomacy as well, the Qataris are interested in getting out of New York and L.A. and Miami, where we've always had good trade and commerce, and moving into the center of the country. There are mayors who come here from places like Dallas, Fort Worth, and Jackson, Mississippi, and Denver, Colorado, which I know is a place that you know well, because there are opportunities there. We took a group of Qatari business people, businesswomen, businessmen, to a conference called Select USA in Washington, D.C. Earlier this year, where they got to meet with regulators, agencies from the federal government, entrepreneurs, municipal leaders, so that we can build those connections and build up trade and investment that goes both ways. Qatar wants to be a tech leader. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all working here on data, trying to ensure that Qatar will be a tech hub. And so the bilateral relationship is massive, including with the 6 U.S. universities here, including in the art space. There was an antiquities conference about how you stop illicit trafficking of antiquities here last week. So well attended. Qatar is at the forefront of preserving cultural heritage, right? Of highlighting new and emerging artists, of working on academics and education. And so the bilateral relationship is absolutely massive and comprehensive. And so we get to work on something cool with them every day.
And we're speaking with Ambassador Timmy T. Davis, the United States Ambassador to the state of Qatar. Let's talk about humanitarian aid, because this is something that's a global thing. How does Qatar and the U.S. cooperate and work to bring peace to the world in those arenas?
Yeah, so I'll go from broad to specific. The truth is that Qatar has always been focused on humanitarian assistance. The work that they did after the earthquake in Syria and Turkey, the response to the Moroccan earthquake, to Libyan flooding, Qatar has always been part of this process. And it would take an hour to list the ways in which they've been tackling food insecurity and other humanitarian assistance issues. Importantly, in places like Ukraine, they've just committed $100 million to the future of Ukraine. Some of that money is dedicated to ensuring that young Ukrainians can get an education, right? Some of that money is scholarship money. Some of that money is helping finding missing children from the conflict. And so what we have done, I think smartly, is make sure we're not trying to prescribe what Qatar should do in the humanitarian assistance realm. What we are doing is having a robust conversation with Qataris and saying, what's important to you? How can we help you do the things that you want to do around the world? We think it's a model for the rest of the world, the work that Qatar Charities does, Qatar Foundation for Development, the work that they do. And we're not saying these are U.S. priorities, how can you help us?
Right.
We're saying, where are we both committed to making a difference, and how can we do it together?
Right.
But the upshot is that Qatar is already leading on that, and so we find ways to come along.
Ambassador Davis, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know you got to run. I wish I had another hour to speak with you about various topics here in Qatar and around the world, in the U.S., and we bond over which football teams we root for back in the States.
100%.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. It's been my pleasure. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.